Here we are. Welcome back.
Welcome.
You with your cool shirt and me with my cool hat.
Yeah, both wearing something cool. It's got like some mountains on the back.
All right. That's cool. This is
Yeah,
from the mountains in Oregon.
yeah. Even though it's from Zara, so it's probably made somewhere in like an unethical
Yeah, I'm sure. So
shop.
it's probably everything that I have.
What does yours say? Is it something club?
Pronghorn, I think.
Pronghorn.
Pronghorn Club.
Let's
It's a
go.
golf
What is that,
club.
a golfing thing?
Yeah, it's Lori got it out at Bend, Oregon. It's a golf club out there.
Oh, that's dope.
I didn't
You've
go. If
been
I'd have known it was a golf course, maybe I'd have gone with her and taken my clubs, but I didn't. So here I am. And by the way,
right.
I did happen, Bernice, nice to see you. Nice to have you here. I did have I shot an 88 the other day on Friday, which is
That's
for
your
somebody like with my talent, an 88 is pretty impressive.
that's your best yet, right? Weren't you in the
Best yet.
90s
Yeah,
last time?
because
92?
92, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which up to that point in time was my best because I don't really keep score. I don't do legitimate scores, meaning that I don't do where there's no do-overs and call them mulligans. This time, so with an 88, there were no do-overs, man. I shot the ball exactly as I hit it every time.
Uh-huh.
So I broke 90. That's cool. I feel really good about it, except that
Let's
now
go.
my goal is to break 80, 85, to hit 85.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
means between now and 85 and doing that is going to be a lot of frustration.
Got it. It only took you a few weeks. It was like what? That was 3 weeks ago that you talked about the 92
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something?
but I'm mostly a low to mid 90s person. I played
Mhm.
yesterday and I shot a 94. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, yeah.
standard for me. So, but just getting those
Mhm.
couple of shots where I'm below 90, man, it seems like
Yeah.
it would be easy, but it's not.
How
I
many
got lucky.
shot difference? How many differences in like how many shot takes does it take to get the difference of like 92 to 88? Like what's the
I probably have to hit 1,000 balls. Yeah.
Oh, from 88 to 85.
Yeah. I mean, you got to take so much practice. You can't. It's so easy to mess up. The
Yo.
better you get, the harder it is to improve. Yeah.
Hmm.
Let me
And
just.
that's because 70s is like pretty good, right?
70s is spectacular. Really, not many people can hit in the 70s. Yeah.
You're only 15 off, Sam. 18 off, Sam.
Yeah, dude. I could play every day of my life for the next 3 years, and maybe I would hit in the 70s.
That's so
It's not
interesting.
worth it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
all right, man. So
Just
listen,
like,
uh, we got a lot of.
Wait, I still have a golf question.
All right.
I assume that you've seen the president's swings in Scotland that were plastered all over Twitter. What do you think? Does he swing well? What is his putt style to you?
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
his drive, he's got kind of a little bit of a funky drive. He's got like I do, like I haven't. My body isn't the same as it was 40 years ago, so I'm a little bit stiff. I don't take a really full swing. I
Mm-hmm.
only drive about 150 yards, which isn't very far
Mm-hmm.
because I don't take a full swing. And
Right.
so he kind of has that. But the word on the street is he hits the ball down the center of the fairway almost every time. So, and for
Is that
his age,
impressive?
that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty
Okay.
good.
He's probably been golfing for a while.
Well, his whole life, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
anyway,
I did. You ever think about doing like golf personal training? You know how like these trainers now, the new thing is
I,
like training for golf. Like my dad's training for that. Like he trains people for that now too. Like make sure their mechanics are right and their form and their posture and
nah, I don't think
you know,
about that
gotcha.
because I'm just too busy doing other things. I'm happy to just do what I hit, how I hit, and that's good enough, man.
That you're improving.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So listen, man. Mr. Rashidi, it's nice to have you here. So I have a couple things that I thought I would go through some headlines, maybe like talk a little bit about how I read the news, like what jumps out for me, and because I don't have a lot, but I do have a number of things that I
Yeah.
read through, and I think that
Mhm.
people oftentimes. Hang on, I have another commercial. I always get a commercial about 5 minutes in, and then it'll be every half hour. So I don't, people. I don't know, man. I don't know what I want to say. People
Mhm.
often ask where I get my news from, and
Mhm.
and and how comfortable am I with it? And I'm not. I'm never 100% comfortable because I know that information is so complicated always. And I know I'm saying this, I'm like a broken record. I say it all the time. Oh, it's so complicated, it's so complex. But it really
Mhm.
is. And so the most I can do is trust the more reputable news organizations far more than, like independent journalists and investigators and so on. I
Mhm.
feel like there's something about the reputable news organizations that are
Yeah.
trying to get
How
at
do you
truth.
diagnose what's reputable?
Well, it's hard to say, right? I mean, I think that the largest newspapers are in every country are generally the most reputable. They have most at stake, and they're the most difficult ones for a person to get a job. It's the job where every journalist wants to work. Because it's
Mhm.
prestigious, and it's prestigious because they're generally quite reputable, and they have feel some kind of way about truth. And I've been at the sort of at one end of news,
Mhm.
where I actually understood the complexities of a story, and I watched how people tell the story, and how they get it wrong, and where they get it wrong, and how easy it is to get it wrong, and
Mhm.
how easy it is for people on the outside to just assume that they didn't get it wrong because they are X, Y, or Z, whatever, and
Mhm.
so it's very, very difficult, man. And even when I have a website or something that I don't really know about, I don't necessarily know what it is. I'm really suspicious and very cautious about it.
Mhm.
And I
So
know that
mhm.
that go ahead, man. Yeah.
I was just gonna get more specific about what those main newspaper sites or the big newspapers are that you're thinking about. Um, but
Well, yeah,
like who they are for you.
and
Like, are you talking like New York Times or
New York
what?
Times, the 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 LA Times, the Le Monde in Paris. I think the BBC. I think the Washington Post has been that way.
Mhm.
Chicago Trib. Just to
Mhm.
here in the United States, right? Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think
And
that
then
yeah, I just feel like man, it's so difficult. There's such a human tendency to think that things that tell the story that we believe in are become the truth. That becomes the true story. It is
right.
so difficult to get away from that. You
Mhm.
know,
Like
like
the
today.
confirmation bias, like people
Yeah, yeah,
looking for the thing that already validates what they believe.
exactly.
Right.
Today I was talking about God and the conception of God. Somebody asked me, said in one of my students, they said, "Hey, we were watching that one video of yours from a few years ago, and you mentioned in the video that you're an atheist. And
Mhm.
like, what do you mean by that? Because it doesn't sound like you're an atheist." And
Mhm.
And what I was saying in class, I just had a chance to really talk more openly about it because it's a group of about 35 students. So we meet for 2 hours, so we get to really have an open conversation. And I was saying, look, my way of thinking about the life force. So what people would call God, call the life force. I could call God. It's fine. It doesn't really matter to me. But the way I think about that is so vastly different than how other people think about it. Like there's zero anthropomorphizing for me. Like I don't give that life force any
like human
qualities. Yeah. So the life force doesn't care about outcomes. Human beings care about outcomes. The life force doesn't think, doesn't feel, doesn't see, doesn't want something of me. None of
the life force can't care.
Can't care. It doesn't. It's not about that. And because of that, I can't even talk about it, you see, because you can't use a single pronoun at all, because the minute you use a pronoun, whether it's it or he or she or anything, you're turning it into something that's tangible. And for me, it's not that. I don't believe that that's the case. It's my deepest belief system. So then I have to say, well, I'm an atheist, because this thing that I could just call God, I can't call God, because the moment I do, other people who do anthropomorphize, right, which is so difficult to not do, right? It just throws the whole thing out of context.
Yeah.
And so I don't.
How does that like support like those that anthropomorphize and you that doesn't anthropomorphize? How does that support like the way you navigate? Like what's the reason that you do it that way, or that you think how has that supported you navigating through the world? Is it better like because now it's harder to blame, or it's harder to like put fault on the thing, or I don't know, like
no, it's more difficult to connect. I think it's harder to connect is really I can't connect. I can't even have a conversation about God, because the way I think about it, it's like me talking about the color blue and you talking about the color black. And we're talking about them not as though they're two different colors. We're talking about them as if they're the same color. It's like, dude, one's blue, one's black. This is a whole different world out there. Like we're talking about completely different things. And so if we use that word, and then the word God, we're not even coming close to any understanding between us. And so, so the point being, confirmation bias is like that it's so difficult to resist this desire to encounter things that support what we already believe. It's so difficult to resist that. I am all the time putting myself, I'm a victim of that for myself. And I have to stop constantly and say, wait a minute, why are you thinking that this is true here? Because you already believe this. So how do you know? Like you got to keep getting to the opposite, right? So right now with Israel and what's going on in Gaza, for example, it's like, it's okay, it's okay. Let me hold in my head.
What's the most recent update of what you're?
So let me think about this as genocide, right? Okay, let me think about it as genocide, right? Like that is, how do I think about it, right? Well, what do I think about genocide? And then I'm like, no, okay. So if I start to think, well, it seems a little bit like genocide, I have to immediately go to someone making the argument against that. I have to go there, and I have to listen, read what they're saying. First off, I have to find somebody who's speaking about it very thoughtfully, like not just some random knucklehead. It's like, no. Look, this is not genocide because here, let's go down a rabbit hole together, right?
Right.
And that person has to say things I agree with and disagree with. Like, if it's, I have to find someone who can really hold that for me.
That can hold
And
both
then
sides, or
you can
hold
hold both
multiple
sides,
sides.
and then arrive at the place where, yeah, listen, that's not genocide. And then I have to, once I agree with that person, okay, because then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, all right, that makes a really good point. I have to go find the next person who says, no, it actually is. Let me take you down the rabbit hole of my mind, which I very carefully thought this out. And, you know, maybe I'm a scholar on it or whatever the case is, right? And let me take you down this rabbit hole. And then I have to get to the end where I say, like, oh, those are really good points. I can agree with that. Now I've got two different perspectives that I agree with. And now only when I get to that place can I start to make up my own mind about what I'm thinking. Like, and even then, it's going to be very contextual. I'm going to say, well, it is, but I have to qualify based on these things over here, or it isn't, but I have to qualify based on these other things over here. See, it's such. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so curious where we go after we have defined it, whatever it is. Like if we define it as genocide, or someone defines it as not genocide, like what happens after that? Like, well, if it's for the argument, like, you know.
Well, it's different for maybe a lot of people, but for me, I'm a teacher, right? So as a teacher, it's my obligation, and I'm a teacher of a certain order. You know, other people are they don't their job is not to do what I do. Right. So they're a teacher, even a sociologist, even someone who studies that issue can be like, okay, well, I'm a teacher and here. My job is to explain to you why it is genocide. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make really good points and I'm going to be very clear about it. Like,
and your different point is like why it's complex.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. And another person, their job as a teacher would be say, well, I'm going to teach people how it's not this, you know, so that's that's fine. Teachers do very different things. My particular job as a teacher is to stay in the complexity and make things and keep things very, very complicated, which is what allows me to be really wishy-washy. It sounds like I'm being wishy-washy, but basically what I'm doing is accounting for lots and lots of different things.
Right.
That's my job, you know, and I don't like it. I don't like being there. I would really rather be able to I would really rather be able to come up with statements of truth. You know what I mean? But I'm changing all the time, man. I'm changing all the time because I'm constantly seeking out people who are very smart and they disagree with me. And so what I'm saying is that is so difficult to do. That when someone says, okay, what media do you use for your information? And I say, well, the media that I use is a media that's got a hierarchy behind it that I trust at some level because I know people who are in the industry and I know how the hierarchy operates. And I know that, yes, there are always stories that get pushed through because somebody up above has decided this is the story and this is the take we're going to take. That's always going to happen in human life. I mean, that's the nature of it. Or a single editor or owner or whatever. That's fine. But
there's always a hierarchy that's saying this is the take. Like that's planning what the take will be.
Yeah, they're going to hijack the truth. Yeah, and
there's never an editor that's like, this is my take, and I'm just going to go with my take.
Yeah, or they hire people who think a lot like them, and you know, so you know, this is like, you know, if you surround yourself, if you hire people who think like you think, well, obviously you're gonna always come up to the similar conclusions, right? So, but you don't want to hire people that think very differently from how you think because it's a pain in the arse, man. Like I don't like being around people that are constantly disagreeing with me. It's like, dude, we don't get anything done here. We're just disagreeing with each other about stuff. But sometimes that's what you got to have. Like students who disagree with me all the time, they're so annoying. They are so annoying, man. And I'm just like, God, you again. And yet I love them because I need them. Sometimes they're not very smart. They disagree when they're not like, okay, I appreciate the fact that you're playing that role, but you got to understand that there's not a lot behind the arguments that you're making. But nonetheless, I support it. And I never say that. I would never say that to them, you know, but because I don't But the fact is, Elijah, you get to my age and you start to be able to see what some weak arguments are and some strong.
Oh, for sure. I can. Yeah. No. 1000%.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're just saying, you know, like, yeah, it is frustrating as society, you know, as a society or as a group, as a person to deal with someone that's different or disagreements, but like it's such a necessity to have that in order to, you know, like you're literally looking for that yourself. You're looking for the person who's disagreeing, you know, and, you know, in order to like truly collaborate with like wisdom from all sides.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Yeah. From multiple, not all sides, but from many.
Not all
as many sides as are meaningful. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, with that in mind, here I'm gonna. So New York Times is one I go to all the time because now I never read the opinion pages ever. Okay. I don't like the opinion pages. They have too many of these classic kind of liberal type people that they've hired. They have a few really thoughtful people either in the center or kind of toward the right a little bit or whatever. And they have some thoughtful people on the left, but there are just too many that I just don't like it. I don't need your opinion. Okay.
Right.
I don't need your
opinion. The facts.
Yeah. Give me the facts. But what I know a lot about the Times, and I've worked enough with the Times, being interviewed by them myself personally. And
oh, really?
Other people who have been interviewed by them.
That's cool. I didn't know you were interviewed by the Times.
Yeah, about lots of things. But and it's actually a pain in the arse sometimes. It's like, dude, wait, you're fact checking. You're asking me questions, but you need me to fact check myself. It's like, yeah, I can't. We can't put that in there unless you can whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean put it in there? It's like, you're asking me, like, you want to know what you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
like you're going to a sociologist who's deemed as an expert in a certain thing. So why? So you're like,
yeah, I gave you my opinion, my thought on it, and now you want to know like how I came up with that. And it's like, what do you mean how I came up with it? You come to me, like I can't take you through a lifetime of research, you know. But the point being,
are you saying that like, experts shouldn't be? I'm just like throwing a question at you. You know, are you saying that like experts shouldn't have the research behind them, or like how much does an expert?
No, they should, and they should not be
versus.
Yeah, you should not listen to experts
that because they're an expert.
Yeah, no. Yeah, don't believe people just because they have either claimed to be or someone else calls them an expert. That doesn't mean you believe them. What I'm saying is, with some of the research that goes into some big stories,
right?
It's not just willy-nilly, man. This is not somebody fresh out of undergrad journalism school. It just like goes out and writes a story, man. You know, like, yeah, they make mistakes, sure, but come on, pick up the New York Times every single day and look at how much stuff is in there. Like, yeah, of course there are mistakes, right? But anyway, I don't read the opinion pages. I think that's really slanted, and I'm not interested. But but mostly the good newspapers, like well-known newspapers, have a vetting process for information that I think is really good. And so do other publications, you know, like but okay. So anyway,
and so they Go ahead.
So just kind of walking through how I look for things. I'm looking like who said it, who says something, what's the documentation on it, what's the background, are other people saying it, are they saying the exact same thing? If so, is one person copying the information, their information from a previous site, and then you got to keep going back to that site. You know, it's kind of like with the when you do your hermeneutics, the textual criticism of the
hermeneutics
text. Yeah, like
did you just call me something?
Yeah, yeah, like hermeneutics.
What is that?
So textual criticism is in the Christians use it to really study, like, you know, really dig deeply into the text. And so, you know, we don't have the original text of any of the books, of the original books of what we consider now to be the grouping of books that we label together as the Bible, right? And Old Testament, New Testament, etc. So we can't we have a lot of forgeries, and so you got to go back and you got to like, well, this came from, we got this text from this older text. Okay, that's cool. Well, where'd the older text get it from? Well, they got it from this other text that's older. Well, hang on, is that an original text or is that a forgery? And if it's forgery, like you got to, these are scholars, man. They've been studying this stuff for a long, long time. And ultimately, if you think about the first 4 books of the Bible, the Gospels, like we don't, as best that we can assess, the oldest fragment of a text that we have, which is just a little tiny piece of paper, it comes from, like 70 or 80 AD, in the Common Era, or CE, I guess we say. So like
CE.
Yeah. So, okay, well, what? Hang on a second. Where'd that come from? So where does all this information come from? Like, where's it from? You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, that's, so stories, when you get a complex story like Epstein and the kind of what's happened with Epstein, you gotta like, man, where are we getting the information from? Well, everyone's getting lots of this stuff from the same websites. And then, it's like, okay, well, hang on. We need the original. We need to really go back and find out what we actually know. And it's so easy to.
And it's like, how do you get the original?
Yeah, that's how do you get that, man? So what are we talking about? And this is, for me, it's very tiring. It's very difficult. It's a pain in the arse. It means I'm sitting on my rear end far too many hours in a week when I could be golfing because I'm digging around trying to figure out. So here, with that in mind, I'm going to go to a couple of these stories, right?
Yeah.
And
I just love the when I could be golfing.
yeah. All right, hang on. That's us there.
Is it? That's cool. Based on your language, it sounds like you're really feeling this as a responsibility. Because you're like, when I could be golfing, it's like, is that how you feel? You feel the responsibility to be sitting on your arse. It's the first time I've ever used arse.
The arse. All right, there we go. We got it now. Yeah. And
you feel that responsibility as a civilian or as a professor?
Yeah, I feel it as a professor of my way of being. I didn't always feel it. I was very loose with information. Jeff, we're ready. I think it. Oh, wait. All right, I'm waiting for it to show. It's not. There we go. Here we go. Okay. So I don't see Elijah and I. All right, so listen. So this is an article about Hegseth. He's at odds with his generals. And I'm like, oh, okay, hang on. This is
Hegseth?
Hegseth's our defense secretary, who, had been in the military at some point, and then he was worked at Fox News as a commentator, reporter or something. He's the guy that's got a lot of, it wasn't easy for him to get endorsed by anybody. But, so this grabs my attention because I'm like, wait, hang on. He's at odds with his generals. Like, whoa, hang on a second, man. Suspicions about leaks, Mr. So now this is the New York Times. Okay. So you might say, if you're on the right, you might say, oh, well, the Times has it out for Trump. It's like, well, hang on a second, man. The Times is the Times. So be really careful about before you just go to that, because I'm telling you, Elijah, I spent enough time working with reporters from the Times that I'm like, the folks who are reporting the story are not doing this willy-nilly, man. They're being really trying to be super.
So the difference between you saying the Times and Republican who's against the Times, and saying, oh, well, the Times, the difference in experience that you have of being interviewed and having real direct experience with these reporters that showing you, oh, you know what, I see an unbiased perspective here.
Yeah. Or well, no, I see a perspective. I know what's in this is these reporters right here are people that are really going to try to get at truth. Okay. And truth is going to be really complex here because this is kind of information is very complicated. Okay. So listen, he decided not to promote a senior army officer who spent 5 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq because he suspected, and then they say without evidence, and you can assume like there's without evidence, right? Direct evidence that he leaked sensitive information to the news media. Okay. So this Douglas Sims, he was cleared of the allegations inside of the military, by the way, cleared of those allegations. And Hegseth agreed to promote him. But then he changed course again and he said, nah, I'm not going to promote this guy. Right. And because he was too close to Mark Milley, and Mark Milley was this chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Trump didn't like Milley because Milley wasn't a yes man to Trump. Okay, that was pretty clear. So Hegseth's sudden reversal prompts an intervention from Dan Kane, the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He urged Hegseth to reconsider. So it's like, wait, hang on a minute. Who? This is this guy, Doug Sims, right? He's a lieutenant general.
The one who was going to get promoted, but then
he was going to get promoted, and then
was rejected.
And then Sims is retiring, right? So I'm just like, man, this is the kind of story, and it's a long story. Like you gotta dig in, and you want to know a little bit of something about this. All these people lost promotion. It's interesting. 3 women, and a black guy. Okay.
Wow.
They were all dismissed during the first period of the Trump administration. So here's this Ricky Berea, right? Recently retired Marine colonel. He's close to Hegseth. So he's going to be a yes guy. Everybody's going to find somebody who's their yes guy, their assistant or their associate. And, this is a long article, and it's an article that you got to pick it up. You got to read it line by line. And you got to get to the end, and then you got to say, okay, now what questions do I have here that I believe or don't believe? Okay. By the way, this guy, Eric Schmidt, is really, really good in my opinion. So when I see that he's on this, I'm like, okay, now why do I say that? Why should you believe me? You shouldn't believe me, but I think he's really good. And then you gotta dig in here, and you gotta say like, oh, okay, hang on a second, man. You got to go after that. But for me, this is a story that I look at and I think like, oh man, this is a bit of a.
And then it goes to, this is going back to like my news, or how do I continue to, get
how
all
I
these
read
angles? You read through it, you have the questions that you believe, questions that are geared towards what you believe or what you don't believe, and then you continue to research.
Yep. And I think this is really, really dangerous, by the way. This little bit.
You think?
This guy, Hegseth, I think he's a political hack who's just a yes guy to Trump, man. And the last thing that people want is a person who's the Secretary of Defense, who's a yes man or yes woman to the leader of the country, man. Like, you don't want that. You need someone who's going to push back. And aside from the fact that this guy's moral failings are off the scale, man. Like, come on.
What has he done?
Just stepping out on his wife and alcoholism, all sorts of stuff, man.
Right.
Just like, just DUI.
It just shows that's not the guy you want for the job.
Well, you can do a couple things. I mean, look, I'm not a perfect person. I don't have any DUIs, and no one would accuse me of having a drinking problem. Well, you might. I drink a beer every single day of the year. Just one.
Don't they say it's healthy? No.
Well, it's pretty, in my mind, it's healthy. But you could say, I cannot have a beer. I don't really care, but I have a beer. It's my second favorite time of day. The first favorite time of day is when I have a coffee in the morning. So,
that's not a drinking problem. For sure.
Well, some people would say it is. Like, would you have to have a beer? And I'm like, well, I don't have to, but I want to.
Right.
So, if it's ice cold. I don't have a beer if it's not ice cold. If a beer comes to me and it's kind of like Luke, kind of cool, I'm like, I'm not drinking this. I'll just give me a lemonade with ice.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Yeah,
so
it's
here's
gotta be
another
cold.
one. So then these are the kinds of stories that jump out at me, right? Here's this U.S. plan to destroy almost $10 million worth of contraceptives. It's like,
And this is another
whoa.
like right-wing value of like no sex before
I don't
marriage,
know
or
what
like
it is. I mean,
yeah.
the headline comes out. I saw the headline. I saw it somewhere. I don't know where it was. I
Mhm.
saw it in I thought CNN. It was a CNN headline. Popped up on my feed, but I'm like, all right, this is CNN. So they don't. They hate Trump. They just doesn't matter. You know, they're gonna, even if it's not about Trump, they're gonna write it in a way that makes it look like it's about Trump. So
Right.
anytime CNN does something like that, or say like a CNN, I'm not like, it's like Fox News, you know what I mean, or New York
Right.
Post or whatever. I'm not gonna follow that,
Mm-hmm.
but you know that I look around and I find like, oh, okay, here's the Doctors Without Borders. So they publish this on their website. Now, Doctors Without Borders is a excellent organization. They're in our will, actually, and
Oh, really? Wow.
they send doctors and nurses,
Cool.
healthcare professionals around the world in conflict zones to treat people. And
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and they do, and they, like 92% of every donated dollar goes to goes to their uh,
Like their direct fund or like what they
direct work, funding the direct work. And it's like about 8% or 9%, I think. I'm not sure what it is. It goes
right.
toward administration. You got to have administration, by the way. So like, you got to pay fundraisers to go out and fundraise
Sure.
and get money. So, that's fine, some of that. But some organizations like I think it was the National Heart or National Cancer Society, a couple of those big ones was like 50% of the money goes toward administration and raising funds for new funds.
Right.
So it's like, I'm not doing that. Even though that's
Right.
fine, you can do it, but I'm not giving money to those.
That's one of the narratives for like the mistrust in charities or
Yeah, that's right. But you can
right.
you can do the work on that. So the U.S. government plans to destroy 9 points. So immediately I see this and I think, hey, this is a problem, man. So MSF, so it's Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, is saying like, wow, man, that were meant for women and girls around the globe, right? These contraceptives. Areas where we work, that Doctors Without Borders work, contraception is already limited. And despite offers from other organizations to pay for the shipment and distribution of the contraceptives, the U.S. government plans to follow through on their destruction by the end of July. I'm like, wait, why are you destroying this stuff, man? So now I think about these like hardcore nationalistic Christians and conservative
Right.
Christians. So I'm really
Yeah.
wondering, like, wait, are these people behind this? You're anti-contraception? It's like, wait, what is this, man? Like, is this the Pope running this? Like, what's going on?
Right.
And so they're talking about callous. So, but here's the problem: Doctors Without Borders. These are not journalists. They're reporting something, right? So then we say, oh, okay, hang on a second. So then we go here. So now I'm going to look up. Okay, hang on. This is what I would do. I'm like, cool, I got it. Doctors Without Borders, but okay, contraceptions. U.S. to destroy. This is USAID contraceptions, Trump administration. This is the CNN one. So look at CNN's right on top. It's not the US, it's the Trump administration. Okay. So here, for example, it doesn't say Trump. It doesn't say Trump administration. It doesn't really anywhere here reference Donald Trump.
Right.
Okay. Here, it's right away, it's Donald Trump. So it's like, hang on, let's go here to CNN. Now here it's U.S. to burn 9.7 million. Okay. But once you start the story, hang on. Okay. So here it's the U.S. to burn 9.7 million worth of USAID purchased contraceptives, which means U.S. taxpayers. rather than deliver them to women overseas. And here it's the Trump administration.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I don't need to know it's the Trump administration. I need to know my government, right? That the government is doing it. And they're dismantling foreign assistance programs. Okay. So here, we go back here. Now,
and you don't need to know it's the Trump. Like when you say that,
why do I
there's a
need
reason
to
you
know it's
say that.
Trump, man? It's not going to tell me anything. So then I start looking here and I'm like, okay, who did the research on this? We have NPR, which is definitely left. Reuters, which is like, okay, this is Reuters, right? This is, let's go here.
You deem that as a good one?
Yeah, well, it's
Reuters.
Reuters, but World News Group. Okay, so this is a different, this is like Reuters. Washington Post, and on the Washington Post is going to do their own. They're going to do their own research on this. I'm looking for the New York Times. Here's Al Jazeera, so that's not going to fly. Cleveland.com. Now listen, sometimes these small newspapers like Cleveland Plain Dealer will put a reporter on something who really sinks their teeth into it, and they do an original story, or the Toledo Blade or something like that. But mostly you can't.
Right.
And so if I click on that, then I say like, okay, hang on. Let me look at the story. Let me see if it's the same. Yeah, okay, the Trump administration. So that looks like the same story here. Okay, is the other.
I'm still kind of curious, and we don't have to talk about it, but I am curious as to why you feel like it doesn't matter if it's like labeled the U.S. government versus Trump administration. Like, does it give people insight?
Well, because once you start with the Trump administration, it's too likely that you're trying to poke at Donald Trump, right? You're trying to go after him, which I don't think is not necessarily a problem. Like, look, it's because of this guy that we're taking money away from USAID, right? It's fine, but it's like, wait, hang on. But at this point in time, he's the president, and this is the government, and these are decisions that get made, and so. I'm not saying you can't blame him for anything,
right?
But it just is. It's too suspicious in my mind. So I'm just telling you how my brain works. Like I just want to be cautious. So I'm not going to go into class and take a swipe.
And like maybe it'd be less likely for those that are pro-Trump to even look at the article because now it's against something that they believe in.
Yeah, that's right. So Adventure Eric says, like, yeah, Reuters is left bias. Yeah, I think Reuters is left bias, right? Okay, hang on. Let's look at this. So this is the kind of stuff that I see. My experience would be Reuters would be populated by a lot of journalists who are, you're sort of new to the profession. You get into journalism because you want to muckrake, which is a good thing. Hang on, I'm going to ask it though. Is Reuters bias? We're going to see here. It's important to consider the stated commitment to journalistic principles, trust principles, journalistic standards. You got to do so much, man. Now, I don't know anybody who's worked at Reuters, so I don't know the inside of Reuters, right? But I do know, hang on this, hold tight. All right, here's Washington Post. All right. So now we're saying Belgium, the UN, and aid groups say they have offered to save almost 10 million in supplies kept in a Belgian warehouse. So they want to keep it. You don't have to destroy this stuff. Just keep it, right?
Wait, so is this contraceptive? It's for the United States, or it's for outside of the U.S., or it's
around the world? It's outside
that need contraception that aren't able to supply it themselves.
Yeah, 50,000 intrauterine IUDs, 2 million doses of an injectable contraceptive, 900,000 implantable contraceptive devices, 2 million packets of birth control, Yeah. So,
Wow.
so all right. So then you go in there and say, the State Department confirms preliminary. So for me, this is like, wait, I read the headline. This is just to kind of have an understanding here. I read the headline and I feel enraged. But I have a certain way of seeing the world, right? To me, contraception is a good thing. For other people,
Yep.
it's not. Like, okay, I got that.
I
But
personally feel the same.
But that's me, right? So I'm constantly trying to. Okay, so here's another one. Then I get upon this. This is the Atlantic. Now, the Atlantic is one of the only magazine currently, the only publication that Lori and I subscribe to currently. I mean, well, I subscribe.
Really?
I mean, I get the Wall Street Journal, New York Times through Penn State, so I have subscriptions to them.
Where are they based out of?
The Atlantic? I don't know, New York maybe. And I subscribe to the Washington Post.
You can get New York Times through Penn State. You can pay for it through Penn State.
Yeah, dude, it's free. Yeah, you can get that.
Really?
Yeah. Let me know.
Okay, we'll have to talk after this.
Yeah, you go to Social 19 website. I have a thing. Okay, so they're gonna the Trump administration, and once again the Trump administration. But now this is the Atlantic. The Atlantic is they put Trump administration up here in the headline. Okay, but the Atlantic is just good, really smart, really smart people, really thoughtful investigation.
Yeah.
But so it's a little bit different than say CNN. So I'm like, okay. But anyway, federal workers.
So is what you know about CNN and their bias that where you'll give like a pass to the Atlantic, even though they kind of labeled it in similar ways.
Yeah, that's right. That's a personal.
So it's all about your context understanding about these.
Yeah. So the food is because of the expiration date. Okay. Well, most of this food are these biscuits. Okay. And so I was like, wait, hang on. What's the expiration really for the biscuits? Let's be clear about that. Okay. What are we talking about? Number two, why was there an expiration date at all? Or why did it go past the expiration date? Like what happened? Because these things, because it got held up, and it got held up by the administration, by all sorts of things, because of, the foot dragging and the unwillingness that everything got put on stop. Okay. So then we say, okay,
shipments, right?
We hit the expiration date. Now we're going to have to destroy this stuff. Right. And I'm like, wait, hang on a second. Like this is bureaucratic ineptitude, right? It's high energy biscuits. And okay, a lot of it. So there were all sorts of things, right? But the point being, okay, hang on, let me look at this. You got to get past the headline. It looks a certain way, but the other side is like a pro-U.S. current an organization, a media organization that's pro-U.S. right now is going to say like, the 500 tons of emergency food is being destroyed because it's past the expiration date. Right. And then people are like, oh, well, that's why we're destroying it, the expiration date. I'm like, wait, hang on a second. Ask yourself, let's talk about a few questions here. Why is it past the expiration date? What does the expiration date actually mean? Because there are a lot of people in South Sudan right now. If you said, listen, we're going to give you 500 tons of these biscuits, but they're past the expiration date. Do you want them? And people are going to be like, come on, man. Of course we want them. Are you nuts? Right.
That's that's a bigger conversation about how we view waste, right? And because this happens all the time in grocery stores and
this is
with the food.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So here's a couple things, right? One, here's another one that I found. This is the New York Times. This is like, so ICE took half their workforce. What did they do now? It's about Glen Valley Foods. They tried to verify.
Okay. So ICE took half of Glen Valley Foods workforce?
Yeah. And so here are all these people working with meats just all day long, man. It's like, how are they going to keep going? It's like they gathered in the conference room. Hang on. Let me Okay, so most of the workforce is gone. Half the maintenance crew is process of being deported. The director of human resources stopped coming to work, and more than 50 employees were being held at a detention facility in rural California.
Wow.
So Hartman folded the printed sheet. He's looks like the president, right? It's like, okay, so what are we going to do? Okay. And then, what he talks about is this work. And the work is like, oh my God, man, like I'm not doing this work. I'm not coming to work and doing that. And if evidently other people aren't, right? The average hourly wage is $20 with regular bonuses. The work's repetitive and demanding, right? Employees came mostly from Mexico and Central America, stood on a manufacturing line for as much as 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, processed hundreds of pounds of meat through dangerous machinery in a cold factory. And I've been in one of these factories, man, it's
Me too,
cold
kind of.
and it's
Not a meat factory? You've been in a meat factory?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
You don't want to be, you do work there, man. You don't want to, that's not
I've
a
just been
place.
in a manufacturing facility,
Yeah.
a warehouse that's like got no windows, it's dark, no clock, can't see. It's
Dude.
crazy. But like not this, yeah, but
No, but
it's
still,
tough
man.
conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here, ever since these videos of the raid spread across social media, Rower, this is the one guy working there, person, answered dozens of calls from strangers who accused him of stealing American jobs. This is the stuff like when people watch one of my videos and they start calling me and sending me emails, right? But Nebraska was experiencing a work shortage with only 66 qualified workers for every 100 positions. Almost everyone of the company's new applicants was also an Hispanic immigrant. And these are jobs that Americans don't want to do, man. So like, here we go. What are you going to do? Here's a job, $20 an hour. Go out to rural Nebraska and start working. This is the stuff, right?
So it's not the fact that they don't have enough workers in Nebraska. There's just not enough people that want to do the job.
Well, it's also enough workers, because, they're really, when the economy's humming along, you don't have, they're saying in the States only 66 per every 100 jobs. So
that are qualified?
Anyway, that there's a worker available for that. So these women right here, all Hispanic women, and the vast majority are they're from Mexico or Central America. It's like, okay, they're going to do that because they have to do it. So if you don't have to do it, it's not a job that anybody's going to want.
Yep.
So here we go. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. What do you take away from this?
Like, well, what I take away is, first off, the idiots, the people who would call them up and say, you're stealing American jobs. It's just, that's the actions of someone who has no idea what they're talking about. They don't know what the situation is. They don't know what the, they don't know who it is and what's going on. So like, don't make these grandiose proclamations about life if you don't have some sense of what's happening. And me in the background, I'm not in Nebraska. I don't know. This is a New York Times article. I know it's well researched. Is there some kind of bias to it? Sure there is, man. I don't know what the bias is to it, but there's something that they got wrong, or they get it, or they didn't check this, or they didn't check that. I mean, there's something that's here, but essentially the story is the story that's very common across the board. All right, so here's another one. This is a good one. I read. So this woman, Marie Glusenkamp Perez.
Interesting.
She wants cognitive standards in Congress, right? She's a Democrat. Okay. Her colleagues disagree. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. What is this? Cognitive standards in Congress?
For example, like Joe Biden thing.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like the fact that people continue to push him forward when they knew that there was no way he could be president.
Right.
And then she was sitting through an appropriations committee meeting on Tuesday, staring up at the oil paintings of the past chairs of the powerful panel. One in particular she found deeply unsettling. It was Kay Granger, referring to the former Republican congresswoman from Texas, who had suffered from mental decline for years when a conservative news outlet, see, this was a conservative outlet too in Texas, in her state down in Texas, found her at the age of 81 living in an assisted living facility in a memory care unit, right? She's still a member
And
of
she was
Congress.
still.
She was the chair of this committee, man. And she's living in a memory care unit and assisted.
Yeah.
This is criminal. Man, come
That sounds
on.
like her desire for cognitive standards, like in my eyes, it doesn't sound like like a bad
what would be the
ask.
problem? So this
Yeah.
woman, Ms. Perez, right? Glusenkamp, she's one of these blue dog Democrats. So she's in the center.
Blue dog?
Blue dog. They call them blue dogs. Yeah.
Those that are in the center?
There's this blue dog coalition, they call it, and she's part of that. So she's more in the center. She's also was talking about this Eleanor Holmes Norton. It's in DC, the District of Columbia. They have a delegate, a congressional delegate, a representative. So we technically have 436 members of Congress instead of 435, but that's 436th one, that last one, is not a voting member. And so that was Eleanor Holmes Norton, and it's Democrat. It's always a Democrat because Washington D.C. is 80% black and 90% Democratic. And Eleanor Holmes Norton was a non-voting delegate. She was clinging to her seat. Besides, like, people knew her mental decline, man. Like, there's like impossible. She was completely incompetent. Right. All these things. So this woman, Ms. Perez, congressional representative, is saying, we got to push this forward, man. If you can't, it's like a driving test, we do for elderly people. And a lot of people, the AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, they were completely against it, but with the idea that after a certain age, you had to take a driver's test, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. What's the age?
Makes sense.
Yeah, let's start at least. Can we start at 85? All right, and then we'll work back from there. Maybe we're gonna get to 80, but at some point in time, man, you should have to take a driver's test.
All right.
So anyway. This is the kind of stuff that I look at, and I'm like, okay, this is great. Ethics committee, great, Ms. Perez. She's been talking to Republicans about co-sponsoring the bill. People don't want to sponsor the bill, man. They don't want to do that. Yeah.
Really? So people aren't down with this bill?
Yeah, no, they're not down with the bill. Yeah.
Because then, when they get up to that age, they won't be see.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why, man. Honest to God. Well, because people want to stay in office, and they don't want to go against the powerful people who are much older and in office. So,
because they lose leverage, essentially.
Yes, somebody is at that age, and they're gonna make you pay for it somehow, right? So we have, and there are now more members than ever above the age of 70. Yeah, here.
Man, how do you disrupt these loyalties?
Dude, there you go, man. 120 there were. So this is in June, right? So nearly 120 members who were 70 and older, right? 86 in the House, 33 in the Senate. Okay, well, 70 is all right, dude. I'm 60. I'll be 65 soon. So I'm still, you can still be pretty on point.
Yeah, you're on point.
Yeah, but 14 octogenarians, man. So 14 91-year-old octogenarians. So
what does that mean?
That means you're 80 and above.
Oh, octogenarians, got it. Makes sense. I thought it meant they had 6 arms. What is that? 8 arms. I'm just playing.
Yeah, that. So, look at that, man. I don't know. Okay, so that's a story that I read, and I think, okay, but that's not. I don't know. Is that a really big story? Is how important is it? I don't know. But here's one that is important, man. Here's another one that I'm reading. All right. So I go to this one. I see this article. This is in this Politics. Okay. Now, I don't know much about this organization or this website, iPolitics, right?
Yep.
Don't know. I have no idea. But they do an interview with David Suzuki, and I like David Suzuki. Really, really smart
And who is
guy.
David Suzuki?
David Suzuki is a long-term environmentalist. He has this foundation called the David Suzuki Foundation, but he's an intellectual from way back. Super smart Canadian guy. I think he's studying in the US, but I think he's Canadian. And
Okay.
And so I like him. He's a very good thinker. So he says, and this is what caught my eye on this. He said, "Oh, it's too late." It's like, whoa, what, man? Yeah, the fight against climate change is lost. We failed to shift the narrative, and we're still caught up in the same legal, economic, and political systems, he said.
Wow.
For me, what we've got to do now is hunker down. Just accept the fact that it's coming. The world is going to be turned up on its head, and just hunker down, man. Do the best you can, because it's just going to keep happening. One thing,
Wow.
heat waves and cold snaps and
Wow. So
storms and one thing after another.
wow.
So I read, it's an interview, right? So I don't really care necessarily the actual, it's a Canadian website, but I'm not that concerned about the website. I'm like, oh, it's an interview with them, unless they edited it to say certain things, but they probably didn't. Yeah. Given a couple of things like this paragraph right here, which I'm not gonna read it out loud, but like, okay, whatever, man. He calls Jeff Bezos' wedding in Italy a disgusting phenomenon, right? This guy is like pretty hardcore.
Anyway.
I
wonder what happened in Jeff Bezos' wedding.
One half idea. A bunch of rich people got together and ate a lot of rich people's food.
But why do you think it's disgusting? I wonder what.
I think for him, it's disgusting to spend that many resources and have people flying in from all over the world in their private jets to show.
But not to be putting their, the resources elsewhere, essentially.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I'm reading this and I'm like, dude, man. Okay, hang on. You're like, the sky is falling here for David Suzuki. You know what I mean? I don't want to be a Chicken Little, but I'm like, oh God. And I want to, and I'm going out trying to find people who are saying like, dude, it's fine. Don't worry about it. These are extremists. It's fine. We're going to work this out. We got it. We've got all this new technology in the pipeline. We're gonna manage it, and we don't even know anyway this, the carbon concentrations in the atmosphere of the thing. Maybe it'll turn around. We don't know. Like I'm always going out and seeking anything that says that no, it's okay. Don't worry. Like you can worry about it, but like we think we're on a path here. We'll make it work, right?
Right.
But then I get to here, so I'm like, all right, hang on, pull this up, man. So then I go to the Trump administration, our current government. Okay. So now I'm going to say the Trump administration. Okay. Because we've gone a very different direction. Because Trump is saying we're going to completely go in the opposite direction on climate.
So this is coming from the Trump administration.
Yeah. This is a report that's written by the Climate Working Group.
Recently, July 23rd.
Yeah. They just released it. Critical review of impacts of greenhouse gas emissions on the U.S. climate. And basically here's the working group, right? So you got to kind of look up, okay, who are these people are. Yeah. So now so I start reading this report, and the report is basically saying, yeah, okay, hang on. In my lifetime, I've had the privilege of working. So this is the secretary of energy. Okay. And, so that's really, really important. This Christopher Wright, okay, so it's appointed by Trump, all right? Appointed by the current administration, I should say. Anyway, it's one in my lifetime I've had the privilege of working as an energy entrepreneur across a range of fields, nuclear, geothermal, natural gas, and more, okay? and I now serve as Secretary of Energy under President Donald Trump. But above all, I'm a physical scientist who sees modern energy as nothing short of miraculous. It powers every aspect of modern life. Okay, so I'm like, all right, so hang on, what is this, right?
Yeah, that
Basically, the report reviews scientific certainties and uncertainties in how anthropogenic, that's human caused, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions have affected, will affect the nation's climate, extreme weather events, and selected metrics of societal well-being. Those emissions are increasing the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere through a complex and variable carbon cycle where some portion of the additional CO2 persists in the atmosphere for centuries. Okay?
Okay, so it's
here.
kind of aligning with Suzuki a little bit, right?
Yeah, so here, first off, I want to put this report in the chat. So anybody who wants to read it, okay? So now I want to know, okay, what's the, this doesn't mean this is the administration's policies here, by the way, right? It's not necessarily policies because
This is just their findings, right?
this is the findings, right? And what they're saying. So we don't know, right?
They're saying we don't know. Oh, so they're not
Yeah.
sure yet. Okay.
Yeah, they're saying like, yeah, it's well, carbon dioxide isn't really a pollutant, right? It doesn't affect local air quality. So there's a summary, like, okay, all right. CO2 and so you got to go down through the thing. Now I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but I want to read it, and I may never have time to read it, but so now I'm in this space of going, all right, what do I do? Because I have this idea that, listen, man, we're probably in deep doo-doo, as we say, because I follow climate stuff. I follow what I think to be really, really thoughtful people. I'm going to assume that Donald Trump and the administration did not and so I haven't done any research on these people, right? But I would guess would be these folks here, this climate working group, are not people who think that climate change is going to take us down. Okay.
Right.
They're not people who really agree with David Suzuki, who I like and think he's a really smart guy. So right there, I'm got to be really careful. Like, well, I like the guy. I already am inclined to think that, yeah, climate change is serious and climate collapse is probably going to happen and like whatever. Right. So got to be suspicious of myself.
Right.
So it's really good for me to read this. First off, read about these people. Maybe not. I mean, I don't need to read about the people. Let me just read what they say.
And if they are, like, is it a red? Because I wonder, it's like, oh, is it a little bit of a red flag that there aren't, out of those 5 people, maybe 2 of them or 3 of them that are maybe aligned with a different perspective? So it's like multiple,
This
like
would be a
iron sharpens.
problem. Yeah, this would be a problem. Okay, so first off, if this was a report written under the Biden administration or the Obama administration, those 5 people in the working group would very likely be 5 people who had the idea that anthropogenic climate change is happening and it's going to really have a detrimental impact on the world.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe there would be one that was a little bit like, come on. Hang on.
Right.
But probably under Biden, I mean, not probably, definitely under Biden and Obama, they would be in that direction. And now under the current administration, just like under, George Bush II, they're going to go in the other direction, right?
And it doesn't make any sense, right? Like it should just be, scientists from both ends of the spectrum.
Mix it up. But here's the problem. You're going to write this report, okay? And how many pages is it? Hang on, let me look. Looks like it's about 150 pages. Well, here, let's look at the authors. Okay, here we are. Here's their bios. Distinguished professor of atmospheric and earth sciences at Alabama State Climatologist. Georgia Tech. They're all academics, and so maybe they're not, right? Okay, he was a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Okay, so that tends to be conservative, but wait, hang on. Sorry, I didn't realize. But conservative in a libertarian way. So this is Stephen Koonin. So that's a good thing, right?
Are these like southern states more, like Alabama, Georgia? Does that mean
Alabama,
anything?
Roy Spencer. Here's University of Alabama, University of Guelph in Ontario. So anyway, so I got to read the report. It's like, all right, hang on, let me see what they say. I don't know. Trump. We got this administration that comes in and says, listen, we got to let's rethink some of this climate stuff. And let's back off. We're not going to spend money on all these places where we were going to spend money, all these like high standards for whether it's CO2 emissions or gasoline mileage, all that kind of stuff. Like we're going to back off on some of that. We're going to invest in coal. We're going to invest in these and other places. We're going to reduce our investment in renewable energies. Like, all right, well, you're doing that. So let me go figure it out. Let me read. But what that means is I have to read a 140-page report. And until I do
strategic?
how am I going to do that, man? How am I going to read 100 foot? Where do I have time for that, Elijah? Where do I have time for that?
Yeah. And so, like, wait, were you answering yes as in like that? Maybe do you think that was strategic to create a 140-page report?
No, not at all. It just means if I want to be smart about it, I got to do that.
Right.
Now I can go find somebody. I can ask AI. I can ask ChatGPT, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you read this report and give me a quick summary of the whole thing?
Right.
They already have their own summaries in it, but I need a summary that's not the one that they gave.
Right.
And so,
right. Wow. I'm curious to know what it says now.
Yeah, well, there you can pull it right out of the chat and read it when you have about four. Hang on, it's single. A lot of it is. Yeah, okay.
That's
you really only got to read about 130 pages, so
not bad. That's it. Just 130. Just 130.
Yeah, just 130. You're all right. You can find for that. What else are you going to be doing?
I wanted to know your response. Don said in chat, by the way, shout out to the chat. We have a bunch of first-time viewers from Europe specifically. We have people from the Netherlands, Hungary. So shout out to everybody in the chat. And Don made a comment and they said, you also have to take into account the fact that these people, for their career's sake, need to align with the administration. We have allowed in this country science to be driven by the politics. And then they also follow that up by saying, what I see as an old fart nearing 50 is one side pushes hard on something and upsets the other side. And then the other side pushed back and now wants to change it.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's absolutely it. I got that. Yeah, and you're not going to look, first off, remember I said earlier about having a student in my class who's annoying? Yeah. And I'm just like, God, stop questioning everything I say, man. You were so annoying. Like, and yet I love it. But like, I just want to shut them down. Like, look, I'm just trying to get to the end of class. Can you just like, right? And so, but yet I need it, Well, first off, in that big class, I can't have someone raising their hand constantly. You just can't, you can't do that. We can't have that here. And I've had a few students like that. Then I have to tell them, look, you just need to see me after class, okay? Because you can't do that. It's too weird in this. But imagine like two of these people didn't go against the stream of the other people, and they spent all their time arguing about little tiny whatever things, and you're never going to write a report like this because you spend all your time arguing. So you got to get people who are mostly on the same page so you can come up with a final product.
It's not possible.
Well, how are you going to do that, man? Think about that. Like, how are you gonna, especially something as complex as climate change and this level of science, like, how are you going to come up with a report where you're addressing these big issues? And, you got to have something
There could be
mean.
like sections that are like arguments within our group.
Well, you
Or
could do what the Supreme
like,
Court does, right? I mean, they write their decision, and then somebody writes a contrasting decision.
right, that's yeah.
So we could do that. Like, hey, by the way, here's what the group came up with, but we want to say there's this other thing going on over here, and we want to
Yeah.
acknowledge that. You could do that, but it's all a very difficult thing to do, man. Yeah. You good? What Don just said. It's like, you got to say something on behalf of the government itself. Whatever the government is, you got to say something on behalf of it. Okay. So you got 5 people who are going to put out this paper. It's a working paper, and you got to say something. It's like there's got to be some alignment here. It can't just be like we all disagree on all these things. You can't. You got to just put it out there. So that's kind of what it is, right? And and for me,
it's so interesting. It's so interesting you saying that, and then like thinking about like our methodology. I'm just like, that's something I'm gonna be reflecting on. You know, like you know what I mean?
Jeff,
Like the whole
screaming,
like the whole wink methodology and
Yep.
mm,
No, think about what you're doing at Wink, and like, you're not trying. Think about, like, you guys had a conversation last night, right? And
or
you didn't
yep, it was
need to get to the end and have them come up with a summary report of what they talked about, and they all agree on it. People with very
right.
different perspectives. It's like, okay, so that's the nature of it. So I think it's I think my point being, for me, what I'd like to be able to represent somebody who I don't think I'm that off the end in academia. I think most academics are closer to being like me than not. A lot of times,
in terms of like what part of
trying to really dig away at the truth, like looking at as many things as possible as we can. But but here's the problem with it, is that it's just time. I probably won't have time to read this report, and therefore I'm not going to change my mind away from David Suzuki, right? Maybe a little bit, because maybe I'll read parts of the report, and maybe I would read David Suzuki again, and I would say, well, hang on a second. I'm not sure I agree with this, and I'm not so sure about that.
right.
I could have a little bit of flexibility, but it's just time. And this is one issue, man. This is just one.
Right.
So so you got everything.
That's wow. The barriers to like learning perspective or just time, like the barrier is the fact that people have so much going on.
I got one for you. How about this? How about, like, why don't we have, I was telling someone today that Lori and I had a car, was built in 1984, and it got 45 miles to a gallon. Okay. 1984, 45 miles to a gallon.
That's awesome.
Okay. It was a 4-cylinder, but it couldn't go 0 to 60 very fast, but it was a Toyota Corolla, and it was, for the time, it was a good car.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super safe. It wasn't super heavy, because it was 1984, like, so, what's one thing about a heavier car? It's safer, but your gas mileage is going to go down because it's much heavier. There are a lot of things, right? But
wait, what was the car?
Toyota
Corolla.
Year?
1984, man. And she'd drive it. I lived in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, man. And like, she'd drive it down the street, and all the Puerto Rican dudes would be like, "Whoa, man. The Corolla was a Puerto Rican car. And it was
Really?
everybody was driving them.
I didn't know
It was so much fun. But the point being, I was like, how do we, in 1984, we still have that gas mileage. And I thought, why don't we just got to raise the gas mileage. It's like, look, miles per gallon, we're going to raise it. Every car that's produced, it's got to be at least X. And then I thought to myself, wait, do I understand the implications of that? What do we mean that?
Like, what does that mean for how the car is made?
How it's re-engineered, how everything, one thing after another, man.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like, but it's just like, I have my opinion. And my opinion.
We all have an idea.
Yeah. But I realized I don't know anything. True basement goblin. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us. The idea is that I don't know.
Yeah.
And it sucks to be almost, like a month, 5 weeks away from being 65. And my job is to know. That's what I do in life, man. I would say my job is to try to get my golf score to 85, but it probably will never happen.
Could be a job.
Yeah, it would be a full-time job. So yeah, it sucks, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm going back to something you already said about, like the annoying student, or, like letting it, and you allowing space for that, because it's kind of crazy how much fear like people have like to be that person, because like the annoyance is vocalized, or because or in corporate, like any place that has like some type of hierarchy, like if you're the annoying person, then you don't make it into the politics, and then the conformity and like sipping the Kool-Aid, and then like things never changing, or that's so scary.
It's crazy.
It sucks.
Hey, Axel says that the weight by itself doesn't make the car save on gas. Yeah, I wouldn't think the weight by itself. I mean, aerodynamics, the engine, a lot of things. Weight would be just one of many different factors. But I would think the weight would make the car. Oh no, you make the car safer. No, yeah, but not just the weight. Yeah, because you have like really lightweight steels now that it's super lightweight, like my bicycle, man. It's super strong.
That sit-down bike?
Yeah.
That
But
thing is so
you have
cool.
airbags. I mean, there are a lot of things that can make a car safer, but I would think that weight would be maybe just one of things, but maybe not. Yeah.
Sorry, Sam. I love that bike, man.
Yeah, it's a cool bike.
Yeah.
Recumbent bike.
Incumbent bike. That's what. Yeah, I didn't mean to call it that.
Yeah, that's all right. Sit down bike. It's all the same.
Yeah. No, that's a vibe. It's hard to ride, man.
Yeah.
I think it's not easy.
I just realized that this whole time my head's kind of cut off. What is it? Yeah, I think on the stream. Anyway, I just raised it.
Oh, okay.
I just raised my camera. Yeah.
Got it.
Hang on, watch. There it is on the stream. It's going to go up. Yeah. Okay, look. We're at 4:30. I think that it was cool. I enjoyed today. Maybe I'm going to try to read some of this. Maybe you should read it, bro, and you should report back to us next week. Read this white paper.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to get through a whole 150, but I could read some of it.
Yeah, just pick it up somewhere. Somebody read it and get back to us. Yeah. That'd be good.
Yeah. You have it in the stream. Let me get can you send the link in Slack? Or you already have? It's on the.
Yeah, hang on, man. I'll send it.
Also, Sam, you should look through the chat. I linked, I think it's like a listing for the car. Is that the car you had? And if so, was that the color you had? It was sent like maybe.
No, that wasn't the car. That was a sport coupe.
Ah.
Yeah. No, that was that's the car that had the headlights that went out.
I was gonna say those things look pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was. Well, yes, this is that's one that people really like. But now it's like Yeah. All right, listen, Mr. Rashidi, if you're still there, enjoy your time in France. That's pretty awesome. Send me a photo when you're with your sister.
Did he say that he was in France now? Because I talked to him
No,
earlier.
he's going.
Oh, he's going soon.
Yeah, he's going this weekend.
I mentioned earlier in the chat that I today watched just a segment, a little clip of you and him when you guys were both in Paris together.
Yeah.
I confused myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, y'all. Good talking. Good yapping away.
Yeah,
And,
thanks for taking us through your process.
yeah, man. Yeah, letting you inside
cool.
the brain. I'm going to put this report back up here again, the bottom of the chat. If anyone wants to read through it, it looks like a lot of fun reading. Yeah.
It's funny.
All right. Be well, everyone.
Be back next Wednesday.
Yeah, we do this again next Wednesday. True Basement Goblin. We do it every Wednesday afternoon. Thanks, Adventure Arc.
I think it might be.
Yeah, we do it every Wednesday. We're going to try to do it more, but Jeff we're going to try. If we find the right groove, like looking at news like this is kind of fun. I thought it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, it makes it easier actually for me to have something to talk about in that way.
Sam, if you ever tell me to stop what I'm doing to start streaming, the answer is going to be yes. So.
Yeah. All right.